There are moments in a player's career when the stars align, but only for a breath. And in June 2025, Victor Osimhen stood at the edge of one of those rare moments. The window wasn't just open, it was wide, welcoming, almost begging him to step through it. Chelsea needed a striker, a true nine, not just for goals, but for presence, for energy, for hunger, for history. And Osimhen, he was ready to move, or so it seemed, behind closed doors. Chelsea had been working on him for over 8 months, even before Maresca took over. His name floated across the recruitment offices at Stamford Bridge like a spell. Osimhen, the man who had bullied Serie A into submission, who ran like a storm and celebrated like a warrior. The heir to Drogba's fire, not just in movement, but in meaning. The plan was simple on paper. Chelsea had the funds. Napoli was open to talks if you played the game right. And Maresca, he wanted a striker who would not just finish moves, but start chaos. In early July, Chelsea's internal shortlist included only 3 names for the 9 role. Osimhen sat at the very top. Meetings were held. Internal analytics, tactical fits, wage discussions, even private briefings on how Osimhen's arrival could emotionally stabilize the squad's midfield, offering clarity to Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, who still looked confused about the structure. And then came the moment of intent. Chelsea's co-sporting directors, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, approached Osimhen's camp indirectly at first, using intermediaries. The response, cautiously positive. Osimhen wasn't rejecting them, far from it. He was interested, very interested, but he had a request. Greater than give me time, let me think. Let's not rush, time. That was the first warning sign, because in football, time is a luxury no club can afford, especially not Chelsea, with their volatile ownership, their billion-pound roster of overlapping midfielders, and their habit of planning tomorrow while burning today. Still, Chelsea waited. They paused more aggressive talks with Ivan Toney. They cooled conversations around Jonathan David, even Victor Giménez, a player many at the club believed was tactically superior to Osimhen, was momentarily shelved. They gave him space. Victor, meanwhile, went silent, publicly. He smiled in interviews, said he respected Napoli, called Chelsea a great club when prompted, but privately, he hesitated. Maybe it was Madrid in the back of his mind. Maybe PSG. Maybe the weight of wearing Chelsea's haunted 9 shirt. Maybe it was just doubt. His agent whispered in his ear, "Let them sweat. Wait till they need you more. Let the season begin. Then we strike." But Chelsea wasn't waiting in a vacuum. By late July, a shift occurred. Not in panic, but in posture. The internal language changed. From greater than we want Osimhen to greater than we love Osimhen, but we need a striker regardless. That difference, it matters. Maresca still wanted him, no doubt. He had spoken highly of Osimhen in team meetings, describing his pressing triggers as warrior instinct and calling him a gravity center for the final third. But even Maresca knew this wasn't just about football anymore. It was about momentum, and Osimhen was losing it. On August 1st, Chelsea's board began to activate parallel plans. One source described the atmosphere as respectfully moving on. No bitterness, no leaks, just business. Phone calls were made. Jonathan David's representatives were re-engaged. Brighton was contacted about Ferguson's long-term clause. Internally, a fresh scout report on Santiago Giménez was circulated, and Osimhen, he didn't know, because his camp assumed the silence. From Chelsea meant one thing, patience. They were wrong. Behind the calm exterior, Chelsea had started to shift lanes fast. They couldn't afford another Lukaku-style waiting game, and they certainly weren't going to chase a player who wasn't chasing them back. Then came the moment that should have been the final alarm. On August 3rd, Napoli leaked that they were preparing a final renewal offer for Osimhen at lower wages with performance clauses, and a sell-on clause that scared Chelsea off. That night, Victor posted a photo of himself in training, caption, "Greater than focus, nothing else." To his fans, it looked like commitment. To Chelsea, it looked like a closed door. And still, no word from him, no call, no push, no final request. Just silence. Chelsea, now operating under new time constraints, decided they couldn't risk it anymore. The squad needed clarity. The fans needed leadership. Maresca needed certainty. A new plan was set in motion. Osimhen didn't see it, not immediately, but his agent did. On August 5th, he called Chelsea's camp again. Greater than Victor's ready. He wants to talk. He's had time. He's convinced now. But it was delayed. Chelsea had moved. Quietly, efficiently, the name hadn't been made public yet. But inside the walls of Stamford Bridge, a decision had already been made. The Osimhen chapter was closing. He just didn't know it yet, and the next morning, Osimhen finally made the call himself, voice slightly nervous, but determined. Greater than is. Chelsea's still waiting. The reply was short, not rude, not bitter, just final. We've made progress elsewhere. If things change, we'll let you know. That single sentence hit harder than any tackle he'd ever taken on a pitch, because for the first time, he realized the window hadn't been slammed shut. It had just been quietly closed, and all that remained was what came next. Silence. That's what Victor Osimhen heard after he asked the question no striker ever wants to ask. Is Chelsea still waiting? He didn't get anger. He didn't get negotiation. He got something far worse. He got indifference. For weeks, Osimhen had existed in a bubble of possibility. Every agent call, every reporter question, every heartbeat, all tied to Chelsea. He believed the moment would wait for him. That greatness could be paused. That destiny would knock more than once. But football, like life, doesn't wait for. Those who hesitate. Chelsea had moved on, and they hadn't even said goodbye. In a hotel suite in Paris. Osimhen sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in his hand, screen dark. His agent stood across the room, not saying a word, because what was there to say? Chelsea had been the one. He felt it. He saw it. He had pictured himself walking into Cobham, shaking Maresca's hand, pulling that cursed No. 9 shirt over his head and whispering to himself, I'll break it. But now, that story would never be written, because Chelsea had flipped the page 2 hours later. The confirmation arrived, not in a message, but in a headline. Breaking. Chelsea agreed deal in principle for Santiago Giménez, medicals. Schedule edges like that. The door closed, publicly, permanently. The fans were split. Some were excited, a new era, a younger striker, fresh energy. But others, they felt it too. The missed opportunity, the ghost of what could have been, and somewhere, in West London, Enzo Maresca sat at his office desk, staring at a wall of tactical diagrams. His phone buzzed once, a voice note from Victor. He didn't play it right away, because he knew what it would say. He knew the heartbreak inside it. Eventually, he pressed play. Coach, I waited too long. I thought I could time it right. I thought they'd wait. I was wrong. You gave me a chance. I didn't take it. You have to move on. I get it. But I'll always wonder what we could have built. Maresca didn't reply, not because he didn't care, but because he did too much. He had seen Osimhen as a cornerstone, a weapon, a leader, a chaos bringer. But now, he would have to lead with someone else. Back in Naples, the reaction was no. Warmer. De Laurentiis was furious, not because Osimhen stayed, but because he had waited too long to leave. Napoli's replacement plans were frozen. Their budget was tight. Their fans were divided. They didn't know whether to love Victor for his loyalty or resent him for his indecision. Worse still, his new contract was no longer on the table. Napoli had pulled it quietly. His wages would remain the same. His release clause would not be adjusted. And now, he'd enter the 2025-26 season as a player out of favor with one club and rejected by another. Osimhen was stuck between kingdoms. The prince who waited to be crowned, but arrived when the throne had already been taken. He tried to stay strong. In training, he ran harder. He smiled for cameras, but inside, the regret was raw, real, unforgiving. Late one night, he scrolled through Chelsea's social media feed. Giménez in training, laughing with Enzo, slapping high fives with Gallagher, learning movement patterns from Maresca. It burned, because that should have been him. Not because of ego, but because of belief. Because deep down, Osimhen knew Chelsea was the club that made his heart beat faster, not because of money, not because of status, but because of meaning. And he let it pass. Then, one final twist. On a rainy Wednesday morning, Osimhen's phone rang. A known number. He answered. Greater than Victor. It's Arteta. Silence. Then, greater than I want to meet. No agents, just you and me. We have something to talk about. Something Chelsea never offered you. That was the moment. Not a door, but a new door. One he didn't expect, one he didn't ask for, but maybe, just maybe, one he now needed. Because sometimes, when one chapter closes to painfully to reopen, you don't chase the past. You write a new ending. Victor Osimhen believed the future was his time, but the clock ran out, and now he must decide: chase what's gone, or become the story that makes Chelsea regret ever letting go.